I'm Carrie Weckelo, and we are excited to share on how to create a resume and networking strategy to stand out. Teresa and I will be your hosts. We have worked together for 14 years running the internal operations of Actualize. She is my right hand and go-to person, as well as for all others at Actualize. She heads up our recruiting function and has interviewed over 10,000 candidates and even reviewed more resumes, so you are lucky to get her expertise in this webinar.
Thanks, Carrie. Your first host was Carrie. She is the COO at Actualize, and beyond her everyday leadership in just that role and all of those tasks that come with it, she has also cultivated a program and a service offering at Actualize, inspired by two books that she wrote herself. The first one is Culture Infusion, the 9 principles for creating and maintaining a thriving organizational culture, and her most recent book, Gratitude Infusion. Both have changed the path of Actualize Consulting completely. Carrie blends an experience as a consultant herself, executive coach, an author, a mindfulness expert, and an entrepreneur together to lead our firm to winning numerous awards surrounding all of the amazing culture she has pioneered here. We're really lucky to have her at Actualize and her leadership. She, finally, she has an MBA in information technology and a double major and minor in finance and marketing and psychology from none other than the Virginia Tech.
Thanks, Teresa.
You're
I'm
welcome.
excited to be here this evening with you guys.
Same.
So in today's webinar, we will be understanding the importance of personal branding, reviewing the most popular resume formats, exploring phrases and verbs to showcase your skills, learn the key components of an effective resume and cover letter, perform a successful resume submission, formulate your networking strategy, and ensure that you stand out amongst your competitors. Making your first impression to a potential employer is not the firm handshake or making eye contact. It's actually your resume. It is essentially a piece of paper that gets you the callback or not. So the first aspect you want to ensure you are building is your personal brand. At Actualize, we like to use LinkedIn as our tool for sharing information and searching for new candidates. Now is the time to start building your profile. With your LinkedIn profile, make sure you complete as much as possible referencing the bullets on this slide. And we will, of course, provide this presentation to you so you can reference all the information in it. And then one thing I did forget to say at the beginning is that feel free to ask questions along the way in the chat function. We will be checking that. So if you do have a question, just ask it, and we'll try to get to you as soon as possible. Teresa, did you have, oh, sorry. The other thing, the tip on here is that you can help stand out is really to start building your network and following leaders and companies that you are interested in. And before an interview, request to connect to the interviewer if you have their name, look at their profile, and now is also the time to start publishing your own content about areas of interest. For example, write an executive summary of a recent project and your experience. This way, recruiters and employers can see more than just your resume before the interview or after if you're not linking into them afterwards. So here are our profile examples. Get creative and make it look as professional as possible. Think of aspects of your background that can make you stand out. For example, I have my books in my header. Teresa, do you have anything to add on personal branding?
I would definitely add here to ensure you're enhancing each part of your professional profile. There are different sections of LinkedIn, so you want to make sure you touch upon each one of them. Definitely make sure you include a well thought out about section, a skills and endorsement section. Any recommendations that you can gather, definitely do that and add that to your profile as well, and certainly any accomplishments you've had along the way. Additionally, there is one more recent feature in LinkedIn where you can actually show recruiters you are open to work. There is a setting under Me settings and privacy. And then what you see in that circle, you can see Carrie and I are photos there. That photo will actually become framed with a now highlighted, actively looking symbol. So if you are on the job hunt, that is definitely a good feature to utilize in LinkedIn.
Yeah, that's really great. Thanks, Teresa.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to hand it back over to Teresa with going over the different resume formats.
Sure. So I'm going to touch on the chronological format first, because resume writing is not just a simple task of merely listing positions held with a job description. You have to create a resume to depict your job history accurately while still showcasing your skills and talents in a concise and brief manner. I mean, you don't want a 12-page resume. This is when you need to decide on a resume format that works best for you. So there's the chronological or the functional resume. And the difference between the two is that um, the difference between the chronological and functional comes down to the actual format itself. A chronological resume captures your work experience under each job that you've had, from the most recent job to the oldest job. A functional resume will group your skills by function or expertise and then list your jobs near the bottom of the document. So chronological is simple and to the point, beginning with the summary, then experience, and finally listing your education or any certifications you might have at this point. It is ideal more for people who have worked in the same industry, but for different companies. Chronological is obviously to most the most straightforward and widely used resume format. However, I think as students, you may want to explore the functional resume format as well, and we will go over that because you might have limited work experience, and that functional resume format may be more appealing to you in the end. If you decide that oh, Carrie, do you want to go back one?
Oops. Yep,
Yep,
sorry.
you're okay. If you decide the chronological resume format works best for you, and you might, make sure that your chronological resume stands out by featuring your achievements in your work history section that relate directly to the job you're speaking. Or you're seeking, I'm sorry. Remember to use those action verbs and numbers to describe your accomplishments. For example, instituted a new process that contributed to 20% increase in efficiency. That's a perfect example of just how to do that. Use those action verbs, hone in on the accomplishment, and use the numbers to quantify the accomplishment itself. And the functional format, here is another example of that. So functional resumes have similar information to a chronological, but the information is just organized a little bit differently. A functional resume presents information by breaking it down into useful job skills instead of by job title. It actually groups your skills by job function and expertise, and then lists your employment positions near the bottom of the document, so they're not so much in the top and in a recruiter or a potential employer's face. It's more about your expertise and your skills. If you are a student or have been unemployed or are switching industries in roles completely, I think a functional resume would be ideal for you to create. And if you decide the functional resume format works best for you, organize your skills and really pay attention to this. Organize your skills into categories for easy scanning. So for example, customer service or software, and include qualifications that fit those specifications of each specific job. So if the job seeker or if the potential employer says in the job description they need somebody who knows Excel. If you're an expert in Excel, you're going to list that bullet as software and then Excel expert level. And one good rule of thumb is to find and use keywords from the job description itself. So definitely, the key here is to make sure that the keywords are aligning with the job description itself. Use that job description when you're creating the functional format. So, what to include in your resume? Um, Besides the obvious, you need to show how your skills and experience meet the qualifications and requirements listed in the job announcement. Um, you each time you apply for the position, you should be looking at the resume to make tweaks and capture the keywords and experience as I mentioned before. Some other good ideas are to add any volunteer roles or positions in community organizations. For example, treasurer at a local church or president of your sorority. Include any of those leadership experiences that you have. Others are captain of your sports team or leadership responsibilities you might have had at a previous position. Maybe you ran the kitchen at the restaurant that you worked for. Anything leadership wise will transition into just almost any role that you could possibly be searching for. Again, use numbers to highlight those accomplishments. For example, wrote 15 news releases, improved efficiency of system processing by 35%, and managed budget of 25,000. All perfect examples right there. Um, and it is important to remember that a resume is the first professional glimpse that a prospective employer has of you. So, myself, having read thousands of resumes throughout my career, just wanted to share a couple of funny stories of what not to include. So, on one resume that I received one time, and these are true stories, I promise, one resume I received, the candidate actually listed his master's degree was in internet surfing. And lo and behold, I was not sold on that, so I didn't grant him the interview. Another listed head cheerleader in the in her experience section, which is a great accomplishment to include. I love to see it there. However, after the bullet, she included, and I quote, "Big G, little O, go 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 Terps," and it wasn't exactly professional. So, totally unnecessary things like that. Exclude them from your resume, just as a good tip, but it did end up giving me a good laugh.
Yeah, and Teresa and I always joke that we're going to write a book, Consulting Gone Wild, but maybe we should have a chapter in there on resumes.
It will happen. The book
Yeah, I
will be
think,
coming out.
yeah, for
We
sure.
have too many stories not to share.
Exactly.
So, some resume tips. Um,
Oh, oh, there we go.
There you go. Customize each position description. Again, I keep saying this over and over because it is so extremely important to use words that relate to the actual position. I cannot stress that enough how important it is for a recruiter as myself or a potential job a potential employer to see that you have taken the time to align those two things together. Definitely use your action verbs, and we will go into that in just a minute. Some examples are led, research, created, initiated, all good words to use. Um, Another really, really good point is carefully edit and proofread. Never want to see a resume that has spelling or grammatical errors. There's no need for that in Word. If anybody has Word, it automatically checks that for you. Use those tools. Other tools that are free are Grammarly, and that is when you do receive this PowerPoint presentation, that is a hyperlink that will take you to Grammarly that you can see. It's an amazing tool to use. Use it when you're creating your resume. It's excellent. Format your resume wisely. Don't go over the top with the bolds and the caps and the italics. Nobody wants to see that. And if you feel as though you want to bold or capitalize or italicize anything, have somebody you trust look at your resume after you've completed it. Let them proofread it. Let them decide if it's just a little bit too much or you should take away some here or there. Somebody who you trust will give you the truth there. But my tip is definitely not to go overboard with those three things. Also, don't overload your resume. Stick to just the important information that needs to be on there. Um, you know, I again want to just stress how important it is to you as your first impression to a potential employer. The resume really should be professional all around. One other really funny story that I wanted to share is that I received a resume. It was fantastic. The candidate was amazing. And it didn't stop me from from interviewing him or moving forward in our process, but I will never forget that his email to contact him back was ilovehotdogs@yahoo.com. I will never forget it. And it just is not a professional email. You can create a free email at any time. Make it your name dot your last name at yahoo.com. That's absolutely fine. But remember, professionalism needs to align with every section of your resume. You don't want to be memorable because people were laughing at your email address.
No, so true, so true. And the one thing that I'll just add is something that I do a lot still to this day. I'll have people in my network reaching out, family, friends, have somebody that has experience reviewing resumes take a look at your resume. If you don't know of somebody, um, then have a friend or have somebody who's really good at editing take a look. Because I mean, many times, I mean, even from a professional standpoint, if you've been looking at something for a long time, and I'm sure you guys know this from when you're doing your papers, you miss little small things. So just take that extra step. It doesn't take that much time, and you could even swap with a friend. Say, let's check each other's
It's a
resumes
really good
out.
point.
Yeah.
Really good point. I mean, they're students, and right now they have professors at their fingertips. Utilize those professors.
Hmm.
Ask them for 5 minutes of their time. That's an excellent point.
And believe me, I have no problem ever helping somebody with a resume. I'll usually send them some of my tips, which we're going to go over next. But I'm happy to kind of point out those high level things that they could work on. Okay. So now we're going to discuss how to use powerful resume verbs. This is a great list to reference when you are creating your resume. And remember, we are going to be giving you this presentation at the end. And many times I will have friends or colleagues reach out to me to help me with a resume when switching jobs. And the number one thing that I always see is inconsistency with verb usage for their verb usage. For example, they will say manager of 10 people versus managed a 10-person team, or successfully implemented a treasury management system, which they should have said was implemented a treasury management system successfully. So the key is to lead with the verb for all of your bullets. Make sure that they're extremely consistent in that. And it's surprising to me how that's the number one thing that I pick up on. And that's going to make it look nice and clean and professional, to Teresa's point. And so a recruiter is going to be able to scan and look, and you're going to look very powerful if you use a variety of these words. So now let's discuss how to actually use them. So you should answer these questions when you're formulating your bullets. Who? With whom did you work? What duties did you perform? Where did your job fit into the organization? What goals were you trying to accomplish? What timelines were you working under? What procedures did you follow? So two examples here are managed onboarding of over 50 firms for Business Horizons. So look at what you've been doing at school or in your job. How can you put some numbers to Teresa's earlier point? Another example, plan 2 social events for Rush Week with sorority for over 100 people. So again, I'm saying what I did and I'm quantifying it as well. So you're using your phrase, let me go, yeah, sorry, went too far. So these are great examples of resume phrases to use. And this example I really like because it gives a lot of information in one bullet that you could use on your resume. Identified a new process to streamline registration of members and successfully pitched and implement to reduce time from 2 hours to 10 minutes. The more detail you can provide, the better the person reviewing your resume can see your skills. Most importantly, using these phrases strategically will ensure you get shortlisted. Align your resume with the position description to get on that short list. The recruiter can easily see you have the necessary experience, and if not, you may be overlooked for that particular job. If you do not have the experience, try to look for what you have done to see if there's anything similar. For example, let's say you want to manage social media in your first position. Have you ever done that before? I'm sure all of you have had experience on social media. For instance, my daughter sells her clothes and mine on Poshmark. She could easily denote how much she makes in a month. She also knows she has to post frequently to keep fresh in the feed and have that higher sell rate, all things she can mention on her resume. So just really look at each experience you have and think outside the box. And this is another opportunity to work with a mentor or a professor or even a friend on just trying to brainstorm areas and bullets that you can add to your resume. So I'm going to give it back over to Teresa. Teresa, did you have anything to add to any of that?
I would say on the resume phrases, that example is a recruiter's dream. The identified a new process to streamline registration of members and successfully pitched and implemented to reduce time from 2 hours to 10 minutes. That is a recruiter's dream verbiage right there. That's what I need to know. It's short, it's sweet, to the point, and it captures all of those great phrases that Carrie mentioned. So, yeah, definitely think about that when you're creating your resume.
Yeah, and it's amazing how people are all over the place and they're not being clear and concise.
Hmm.
And I tell you, if I saw a whole resume of that, I would be
Oh,
jumping
yeah.
for joy. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. That's a dream. Okay, so we have gone over the resume, how to build it, what kinds there are. You've got a lot to think about at this point. So we will dive into cover letters. So I guess the best piece of overall advice for a cover letter is to think before you write. So, you know how they say, think before you speak. Well, think before you write and keep the following questions in the back of your mind to brainstorm for the actual letter itself. So, first, think about yourself and your experiences. Write down how you would relate to those experiences in the organization that you're actually writing the cover letter to. Which of your talents, your skills, your personality traits, accomplishments should this particular organization know about? And again, just like you tailor a resume to each job and the job description, you want to do the same with a cover letter. Um, it's not these days, it's just not okay to have a canned cover letter. Again, this should be tailored. Secondly, so ask yourself, how did you hear about this opportunity? If it was through a referral or a personal contact, write down that name. And if it's through an ad or a job board, LinkedIn, make note of it and list the specific points they asked you to include in the job described. Don't forget to do that. So then, what do you want? What do you know about the organization you're writing to? Include that in the cover letter as well. So consider why you want to work there and what attracted you to it in the first place, and do some research about the company online to prepare yourself. Lastly, who are you writing the cover letter to? It's always best to write to an actual person with a title if you can and include that in the cover letter. That's, very personal. It's the way it should be. But if you cannot or don't have a specific contact, try to look up the names of someone related to the role, say on LinkedIn. It's not hard to do that. I've done it a million times when helping people with their cover letters. And if you still cannot find a specific person, keep it professional always, and just try to write Dear Hiring Manager or Dear Human Resources. That's okay too. So there are alternatives to cover letters. People, I think, grapple back and forth with cover letters are outdated, or I don't want to use a cover letter, or nobody really reads them anyway. Should I or shouldn't I? If you decide to, that's great. If you want to go this route and use an alternative to a cover letter, these are some samples and ideas. Um, the employment proposal. So rather than applying for an existing job, create a business proposition based on the principle that an employer will hire you if you convince them that it will create more revenue than it costs. And it doesn't have to be intricate, it doesn't have to be complicated. Just basically get the point across in this proposal that if the company hires you and you do the work that they are proposing, it will be to their benefit. There are also video cover letters. We use this a lot at Actualize. We actually do a lot of video submissions for people who are submitting their resume. It will come along with a video submission. We love them. It's a verbal and visual explanation of why you are the best candidate. Again, you guys will receive this PowerPoint presentation after. That is a YouTube hyperlink there. So it is with the permission, of course, of the person who sent it to me. It's a great example of a video submission. He did a great job. So if you have some time after this, definitely click that and watch. It will be helpful for you for sure. Then there's infographics. So these are visual formats. They include images, photos, graphs, charts. I would say use these if you're applying in any type of a marketing position or anything that is artistic. This would be great for you. So, just go through these and really think about, what works best in the job position that you're seeking. I can tell you one of the best video submissions I ever received was from a person who is actually now my colleague. She works for us at Actualize, and we did hire her. She followed the video instructions that our job description required to a T, and she used that opportunity to be on screen to her full advantage. She showed us this amazing bubbly personality. We loved her from the moment we saw her. She explained exactly why she fit the role. She did it in a clear and timely manner, and keeping in mind that we had asked for 3 minutes or less, and why she felt our firm was a fit for her both professionally and culturally, which is huge. If you've ever had time even before this or done some research on Carrier Eye or our firm, you'll see culture is a enormous part of what we do at Actualize Consulting. It is who we are. So for this, for my colleague to actually take the time and explain why she felt, professionally she could do the job, but why culturally she wanted to be part of our team, that just sent us over the edge. We were so excited. We could tell she took the time to think everything through. She executed it with the intention to grab our attention, and she ended up landing the job. So remember to always video in a professional environment. No Tiger King or whoever that is behind you, no funny pictures, anything like that. And really just try to be organic, be yourself. If you do that, you will ultimately showcase yourself naturally versus trying to be something you're not. So those are my tips for sure to the alternatives for cover letters, but definitely explore these as well.
Yeah, and I'll just add, I mean, for me, as busy as people are these days, and your attention spans are getting less and less. I mean, the video, if it's under, the 2, 3 minute mark, it's just a really nice way to showcase you as a person and your personality. And to Teresa's point on that person, I mean, she is literally the bubbly, happy, she couldn't love her job more person. And that's what she said in the video. And it was 100% authentic. And I believed her.
Mhm.
I mean, I wanted to hire her before I even talked to her,
Mhm.
honestly. That's
Yeah.
how good it was. So that's just, I share because it can be so powerful, the video, because you're just able to showcase yourself in another way. And that goes to the infographic too. If you are, or you are looking for a position that would need graphic artist skill sets, or even, I mean, and I'm not a graphic artist, but I can still create images and things of that nature. There's so many free softwares out there. Just think outside the box. How can I stand out? And just realize that people that are looking at your resume are busy. So just think of that as you move forward.
Yep. Excellent point.
Yep. Okay.
Okay. Submitting your resume. I think successful resume submission is pretty straightforward. You obviously want to follow the instructions if they're given precisely. do as the company is asking. If they're asking you to do a video submission and it needs to be under 3 minutes, don't send them a 10-minute video. That's not a good idea. Make sure you send it to the right person. I cannot tell you how many times I've actually gotten someone's resume and an email, and the email is addressed to somebody else that doesn't even work for us. So that's embarrassing. Make sure you're sending it to the right person, and definitely try to convert your resume to a PDF, if you can do that. There is a hyperlink here, again, how to do that if you don't know how to do that already. So, definitely look at that if you aren't sure how to do that. But PDF to me as a recruiter comes across professionally, more professionally than just a Word document. Um, Good tip to follow is save the copy of the job description that you're submitting your resume for, all the details to the representative and the job identification information. If somebody comes back and wants to interview you and talk to you about it, or talk to you about setting up the interview, and you have a 5-minute conversation about the actual job, if you don't save that description, um, you won't know what you're talking about. You won't remember those key points, those key words. Make sure they're at your fingertips at all time. And a best practice for that is to just blind copy yourself on any resume submission you have. That way you have it right in your email and it's easy to reference.
And Teresa, I would say on that too, I mean, I'm Miss Organization, but I would even just create a document of where you've submitted all your resumes, because you might get on this, one night, like, I am going to submit 10 resumes, but just keep track. And this would be a
Mhm.
great, even if you just create a table, sent it to this company, this is who the email is sent it, here's a job description, and then you can even, track any follow-ups and such.
Yep, all best practices for sure. You definitely don't want to look unorganized if you get that call. Certainly follow up with the hiring manager, the job poster, to ensure that, your submission went through, they received it, and that, everything's following the appropriate protocols. And update your profile on LinkedIn. I will tell you, as a recruiter, I do look at a lot of resumes, but I look at even more LinkedIn profiles, and that is the truth. So if the employer or recruiter looks you up on LinkedIn and sees anything different than you submitted, it's a red flag and it's not a good thing. And that has happened. I have seen that happen before. So it is important to make sure that jobs jobs align, dates align, all of that should be the same from your resume to your LinkedIn profile. Otherwise, you might not get the interview, and if you do, you're going to have to speak to those discrepancies, and that's just not how you want the interview to be focused on. So, definitely a good tip there as well. Networking, so important. Do not underestimate the power of networking. You can network during your everyday activities. You can engage with your professors, your classmates. I know it's a little bit more different at these times, but even parents. I've actually, earlier in my career, networked with my friends' parents. What do they do? How did they get started? Network and see who they know and what they do. It might be something that you are also interested in doing. Get involved on your campus. Visit your campus career center. So much good information there, I am sure. And I'm actually certain of that because we've worked with Virginia Tech so much and been to Business Horizons. I know for a fact that you have a very robust career center. Use that to your advantage. Be active on social media. I'm sure you all are, but do it in a way where you join, relevant groups, alumni groups, even on Facebook. With LinkedIn, after you have created your professional profile and everything looks as exactly how you want it, connect with other professionals in the industry. Join groups that are centered around what you're looking to do next in your career. Post that you're available. Like I said earlier, use that new tool on LinkedIn where you can actually show you're available, you're looking, you want to be contacted. And you can even create a post of your own on LinkedIn. Create a post and say, "Hey, I'm graduating on this day," or "This is where I am in my school career. This is my resume," and you can add the attachment. Let people know. It's okay to do that. That's what LinkedIn is for. Network, network, network. I can't say it enough. I did want to share one story about networking, and this is another story about somebody that I do work with now. But Carrie and I were at Business Horizons one year, and there was a student who stood out to me more than the rest, and he does work for us too now as a result, believe it or not. What made him stand apart was that he had taken the time to connect with me on LinkedIn prior to the event. So I knew I'd be seeing him there. He had sent a message to me, a private message on LinkedIn. He viewed my connections on LinkedIn and he saw that we had a mutual person in common. And it so happened that he personally knew that person who was my connection, who was a subcontractor who had been working for us on one of our projects for a really long time. And when he came to Business Horizons, he walked up to me. We had a short conversation. He mentioned that person's name and he said he had reached out to him and asked him what kind of work he was doing for Actualized. And it immediately sparked a conversation between us. And I was so impressed that he had done that type of homework, that he had gone that deep into my connections and made that connection, made sure to mention it when he saw me at the booth. I was so impressed. And again, he works for us as a result. He definitely used these keys to his advantage. And I want people who are creative like that. I want people thinking outside of the box, that use those types of tactics. It's interesting. It's great. It sparked the conversation. It did exactly what he wanted it to do. And as a result, again, he works for us. So win-win.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it couldn't have been more perfect in his strategy on connecting. The other thing that I would say from a networking perspective is if you are interested in a specific organization, like Teresa said, follow them on LinkedIn. But not only can you do your own post, and we mentioned at the beginning, you could write an article just to give more depth to your profile. I would highly suggest that. You're going to have lots of papers and research and information that you could do a quick executive summary. And then also be active in liking other people's posts, but most importantly, even commenting to something that resonated with you with the person's post or if they wrote an article. So just other ways to get in front of people and network.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So the next is, we'll keep going in this standing out. And I think that's just because there are so many candidates out there, you just really have to stand out. Because you really, you only have that one chance to make a good impression. So be prepared. And, I zone out if I'm talking to a candidate that knows nothing about our company. So the more prepared you can be, the better. This could also eliminate firms if you don't agree on their mission. So I've talked with friends and family and peers on, I'm like, do your research on the company and really hone in on the ones that you really truly believe in, their mission, their vision, and their values. So that could also save you some time, this homework that you are doing. So before that interview too, take time, as Teresa was saying, to look at the LinkedIn profile. If you know the person's name and you have that information, try to find things that you have in common. For example, like Teresa said, that they knew had a similar person. Maybe they went to Virginia Tech as well. Maybe they had an award that they won or they played a certain sport. Just really try to figure out how you can connect with that person. Always, as Teresa said, customize your resume and cover letter. Follow up. Now, this is something we haven't talked about. Following up is really another way that you can stand out is if you are able to send an email, if you have their email. If you don't, do a LinkedIn message. And let's say maybe a recruiter had organized the conversation and you don't have the actual person's resume, maybe it's a manager at the company, you could send your thank you to the recruiter and say, could you please pass this along? So make sure that you thank the person interviewing you. I just tell you many times, if I have somebody that sends a thoughtful thank you, that'll make me think twice if maybe even if I was on the fence.
Hmm. For
Yeah.
sure.
Teresa, do you have anything else?
I love the idea of the handwritten note. If you can, that certainly, especially today in today's world, a handwritten note will put you at the top of the list. I believe it and I've seen it. So I definitely would just reiterate that. If you have the ability to do that, go that route. Be different. Showcase yourself that way.
Oh yeah, I'm a big fan of the handwritten
I know
note.
you are.
It's a lost art.
It really is.
I make my kids still send thank yous. They roll their eyes. One day they'll be happy that I made them do
It's an
it.
excellent practice to take up for sure. Okay, so the top interview tips, and I will go through these just because they are the top interview tips. So once you land the interview, how do you secure the position? You emphasize your cultural fit. You, just like I mentioned before with that other person, she told us professionally and culturally how she would fit the role. And that, again, made her memorable, made her stand out, put her above the rest. Do your research on the company and the person you are interviewing with, not just the company. Do both. Be able to make one comment on a recent event. For example, I saw you are a certified great place to work. Can you tell me about that? That is actually one of the awards that Actualize has won over the years, Great Place to Work. If someone said that to me in an interview, I'd be highly impressed. I would know right away that they did their homework, that they went onto our website, that they've seen that and noticed that in my email, and they're genuinely curious about it. That person would certainly stand out. Know what you're worth. This is very important. Whether you're in the first round of interview or you're in the fifth round, there are resources out there like salary.com, Glassdoor. They can guide you and help you in presenting an appropriate standard salary for the position that you're applying for. I will tell you in my experience, there are many times when I am speaking with a candidate and I want to set the expectation. I want them to set the expectation of what the salary is, of what they're looking for. Even if it's a range, make sure you know. There's nothing more frustrating for you or a recruiter or a potential employer than to walk away from an interview without that information. It's very important, not the most important, but it is very important and it's right up there on one of the most, top interview tips. So certainly pay attention to that. Prepared to ask the interviewer thought out and thought provoking questions. I know Carrie and I can speak for her. If somebody goes into an interview with her and doesn't ask any questions, she's not interested. Um, we don't want to do all the question asking. We want you to be genuinely interested not only in the position, but in the company, in us, in what we stand for, our vision, our values, what we do, our service offerings, where we plan to be in the next 5 years. Things like that are really important questions to ask the interviewer as well. Don't be afraid to ask for a timeline. It's important for you to know that what the next steps in the process are and when can you expect to hear a decision. Those are not rude questions. Those are not things you should be afraid to ask. Definitely ask those. You have every right to know what that looks like, in the process. And then again, be sure to update LinkedIn, Facebook, anything else social media wise that's out there about you, and make sure it reflects your skills that you presented in the interview. There's nothing worse than having to stumble across something because stumble across a bullet on your resume because you embellished. Don't do that too much. Make sure you reflect the skills you presented. So great tip there too.
Yeah, and I'll have to say, I mean, even recently, my sister was interviewing for a new role, and I asked her about the company, just curious, like, okay, well, who are you interviewing with? She didn't even know anything about the company. And so I said, well, hey, how can you even know if you're interested in the company if you didn't do your research? She spent the next 30 minutes looking up the company. She was like, you know what? I'm actually not even aligned with what they're doing. So, it's a two-way street. Like I said earlier, you have to be really jazzed about the company and the opportunity. Because if you're not, they're going to be able to tell that you're just checking a box to get through get through the interview. So that research can help find. So try to find something that excites you about the firm. So for example, like for us right now, we've done a lot. We've had a lot of content out that we're using robotics process automation, RPA. We're expanding into that. So maybe you were working on a project and you can say, you know what, I was working on this project with RPA and I'm really excited to be able to learn more about that if I get this job at Actualize. So those are the types of intricacies that you can find if you're really looking and researching the company. All right. Okay, so here are some questions that can make you stand out. And as Teresa said, the more questions, the better, because really what I am looking for when when you're asking questions is how do you process information? And it's one thing if you read off all these bullets, but what if you ask me, what do you enjoy the most about your job? And then I'm giving you my answer, like for me, it's that I am able to be creative and that I am able to create this thriving organizational culture. Okay. So then if you just went to how do you keep track of performance, right? You're not engaging me in conversation. So maybe you're going to ask a follow-up question based on something that the interviewer said in your first question. So really think about it more as a conversation that you're going to have a friend, be able to try to relate, be authentic, be yourself. And I think that's the next, whoops, I don't know. Yeah, be yourself, which
Yep.
Teresa's going to talk about.
It's true. It's true. And it's again one of the most important things to remember during the entire process. So as we wind down, that is a truly important tip that we wanted to leave you with. Be yourself. There's no point or need to lie on a resume or even embellish any further than you actually have to in an interview because the truth will come out eventually and you don't want to have to backpedal. Um, this slide is obviously there for you to read. Really good bullet points, but I do want to tell you one of the best interviews I ever had was with a woman who responded to, the very, very well used question, tell me a little bit about yourself, which everyone uses. But the way she responded was with, I've competed in a triathlon in every state in the US. When I asked her, tell me a little bit about yourself, that's what she said. I have competed in a triathlon in every state in the United States. It was one of the best responses because to me, it was the most memorable. Again, I'll never forget it. I won't forget how impressed I felt. I was impressed by the stat, and I was also impressed she wasn't afraid to share something that showed who she really was beyond the piece of paper that I had in front of me. I could tell by that statement that she was adventurous, she was goal oriented, she was disciplined. So, my point is be authentic. Don't be afraid to get personal in an interview at times. And most of all, be memorable. Speak to those points that make you memorable. I'll never forget her, and that's just priceless in an interview process to have a recruiter say, I'll never forget you. And again, I think another good point to reiterate here too is, have a sense of humor, be yourself, try not to make or take the entire interviewing process so seriously. Have fun with it, especially if you're speaking with a recruiter. We're people too. If you're in an interview with the actual potential employer or the manager, you know, being yourself just shows that you're able to engage with others with humor and humility. And, we want to see those sides of you too. It is not just about being the perfect candidate on paper. There's so much more that you can showcase in the interview process.
Yes, very well said. The only thing that I would add is that, you know, being yourself is it's just important in general in life, you know. So you trying to be somebody that you're not isn't going to serve you in the job anyways. So it's just a win-win. It's going to be easier. It's not going to stress you out. And just go back to my comment, like think about it like you're having a conversation over lunch or dinner with a friend. So just try to tap into that. And the one thing that we didn't talk about when you're um, interviewing, what I love the most is when people give me examples. So if I'm asking them to, let's say let me asking them, what's your skill set with Excel? Instead of saying, oh, I'm an advanced user, perhaps they say, you know, I'm a really advanced user and this is why, and then giving me a story. So, and I think if you add in storytelling with the interviewing process, it's just going to make it a lot easier for you too, because you can tell a story. Everybody can tell a story. We love to talk about ourselves. So I think you can easily do that.
Absolutely.